Hey guys, let's talk about stopping bleeding. All right, we just ran a medical course here in North Carolina, and I want to go through some techniques for stopping hemorrhage. Obviously, I want you to come to our training, but it's unrealistic for everybody throughout the country to come to training. So these are skills you should know. I had a police officer in here a couple of months ago. He told me there was an accident out on the blind hunting ducks where a kid shot his dad in the leg. Dad bled out, right? Simple tourniquet application could have saved that dad's life. So these are important skills, and they're not nearly as hard as people think they are. Alex is with me today. He's going to help me out. Alex is a Special Forces medic, okay? So he's up to date and the latest and greatest. So I'm going to have him walk you through. Let's talk about the tourniquet first. This one here is a cat tourniquet, right?
Yep,
Combat.
cat tourniquet. Yep. And this blue one here is a training one, but they still work the same. Typically, you're going to see them in black is what you'll be using. This one, like you said, is the cat. This is about how it's going to come packaged, typically wrapped in plastic. If you're ever going to be carrying this, be prepared. Take that plastic off beforehand. That way it's ready to go. And there's a couple different ways you can prep it, have it ready. But first off, get that out of the way. And then you can either keep it like this on your kit or however you're carrying it in your aid bag. I myself prep it like so with just a quick fold over, and then you can kind of wrap it on itself. And that's how I've always carried it myself right there.
So in the military, we always talk about if you're in combat and somebody gets hit, you can't stop the assault to go treat somebody, right?
Yep.
So we always talk about self-aid, buddy aid, and then medic aid. So
That's right.
The reason you have it like that, I assume, is like if you're hit, you can apply this with one hand yourself. Just show how that's done.
So exactly that way, with that already wrapped over, you can do it all with one hand. Say you're shot in this arm, I can just slide that on, pull it tight, and then we'll go over the application here in a second. But that way, you know how to do it with just one hand.
So
and if you're going
there's
for your
different
leg,
ways people do this. The other way I've seen is like you keep it out like this in case when you pull it, it's for a leg injury and you have to feed it on their leg. But I mean, you don't know how you're gonna utilize it. So it's good to be able to utilize it with one hand in case you're the one that needs it for yourself, especially if you're a police officer or military, right?
Exactly. If you're expecting to be in some kind of combat situation like that, then yes. For civilian use, keeping it in your aid bag, just fine, just like that. Hopefully you're applying this to somebody else or have help, and you'll have two hands to go ahead and
just
do
real
that.
quick, talk about why you would apply a tourniquet.
So this is going to be applied for your extremity hemorrhages, somebody's bleeding out, anything, arms, legs, and this is to stop the bleed. That way they can survive long enough to get to a hospital and get some real treatment.
Yeah, so you're cinching off that artery to stop that blood coming directly from the heart pumping out, which it goes really, really quickly too. You will bleed out fast if you sever an artery on your leg or your arm, especially your leg, right? That femoral artery will go out quick, okay? So just on purchasing, this is a cat tee. There's also a soft tee, but it should be at least how wide?
Should be 1.5 inches wide, and that's typically standard with most of them. And then also have a good strong windlass, which is your bar here. Some of the cheaper ones, once you start to turn them, they'll either bend, occasionally break if you have a real cheap one. So make sure you're getting a good one. You don't want this to fail when you need it, because obviously you're trying to save a life at that point.
Yeah, very, very combat proven piece of kit right there. Can you walk through putting it on, maybe on yourself there?
So pretty standard. That way we have it all laid out. You can see it here. You're just going to feed one end through like a belt and put this on any extremity. We'll go with the arm on this one. You're going to go high and tight, just as high as you can on whichever extremity it is. No matter where the injury is, just safest bet is to go as high as you can and get this real tight to start off. Make sure that Velcro's on there, and then just start turning. And typically, once you think you've got it tight enough, you're going for another one. And if you are practicing training on yourself at home, the way to test this, make sure you're gonna go ahead and hook that in if you can see. And then you can go ahead and put that over. That way it doesn't come back out, and you can write a time on here. That way you know when to take this off. Typically you don't want a tourniquet on there more than 90 minutes. Otherwise it starts to cause tissue damage and you have some other issues. Possibly.
There used to be a common misbelief that you had to release a tourniquet every 15 minutes. I blame Rambo, the first movie, when he stuck that cop and he was like,
release that tourniquet every 15 minutes.
That's just not true, right?
Nope, not the case. So typically nowadays they're just standards at 90 minutes and then you want to get that thing off there. So hopefully by that time somebody's either packing the wound, which we'll go over, or get them to a hospital and get some better care.
Okay, yeah, so if you have one of these, and you should have them in your house, like have your kids do it and you know, hold them to the standard and then time them and trying to get them to do it. And then understand that you may not be at your best, right? So practicing things like this in a perfect environment on the ground with both hands with the lights on, that's great to start off, but you should make it harder as you go. Turn the lights off. Okay, one hand's hit and I'm trying to use one hand, and just make it, I know in the Special Forces medical course they have you guys working on people in the back of moving vehicles in the dark with night vision goggles on, because that's real. Okay, so tourniquet, cheap piece of, not cheap, inexpensive piece of equipment for the value it gives and how easy it is and how it can save your life if you have really arterial bleeding coming out of one of your arteries, right? Okay, so let's say I've gunshot wound here, my pelvis, or a stab wound, or I fell in the farm and a pitchfork went through here and I'm bleeding heavily from a place that I cannot put a tourniquet. What do we use for that?
So for that, you're going to be looking for your combat gauze, and we're going to be packing this wound. So like you said, there's typically still kind of extremity wounds typically, but inguinal area, your axe pockets, somewhere where that tourniquet's just not going to be able to get up and inside there. So you still need to stop that bleed. You're going to pack it with some gauze and then wrap it. But we'll go over some packing. So we got a couple different types of gauze here. I'll show both real quick. This one is your quick clot combat gauze.
So this is laced with clotting agent, right?
Yep.
That's why it's so freaking expensive.
Yeah, these
medical
ones are very
gear is expensive, but I mean, you know, what's your life worth, right? Remember they used to have the powder they'd pour into the wounds, and there was problems with that, right? It would blow in soldier faces and dry their eyes, and that's not used anymore, right?
No, not in the field, not that we use anyways.
Okay, yeah.
So now
that
it's
type
impregnated with that kind of
clotting agent.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
And so this is just S folded on top of itself, and yeah, you just start packing. But obviously they all come in different shapes and forms. This one's kind of packed together, so pick your poison. This one's a little harder to deal with, you know. If you're going to be buying these, I suggest you do waste one and take it out and know what you're working with beforehand. That way the first time you're using this isn't when you need to and you're going, I don't know what I'm doing here. So a couple different ones you see here. I'm not even real sure how this one comes apart. Oh, there we go. This one's rolled. So either way, the application is going to be the same. So this is our wound that we have, one of those spots where tourniquet's not applicable. So you're going to go ahead and...
These little training aids are from Life Hold Strategic. They sent to us, and they're for packing wounds. So you have not real blood, water with crystallized drink mix in it, right? But it looks good. We're going to pump the blood through the wound here, and Alex is just going to try to pack that wound as best he can, and you would be amazed how much gauze will go in this wound cavity, and a lot more. Okay, so you ready? Boom!
Yep.
Oh, there we go. Arterial wound.
Starting off, you're just going to try and get a finger on that, and always go towards the heart. So this would be up towards the leg. You're going to be pushing towards the heart. So once you get a finger on it, with this it's a little harder to stop since this Kool-Aid is so thin. Whereas blood, you can actually stop it a bit more. So get a nice little ball right on it. And once you get that ball on there, keep pressure at all times. So you're going to pull a little bit more. And just keep that pressure on there. And keep going. There's a couple ways you can either do what I'm doing here, just kind of set the gauze on the side. And it's going to get messy, but hey, it's all going in there anyways. Or with these ones, you can kind of unroll it and throw it over your shoulder. Some people do that. But as long as it's getting in there and getting the job done, that's all that matters. But that constant pressure is what's important. So Once you find that bleed initially, keep your finger on that spot. You don't want to lose it, and just start packing right on top of itself each time. That way you're not losing pressure on that spot.
Imagine if the patient is wriggling around. This
It
becomes
is
difficult.
going to be
right?
real
Yeah.
painful. He's going to be moving all over the place.
Yeah.
So once you're getting it up towards the top a bit more, things looking pretty full. Just something that we would put right over the top of it. And I'll kind of show you this application on myself. So make sure white side is going down towards the wound. That's going to be your cleanest surface. That way you're trying to keep as much bacteria and stuff out of there. So first wrap is just going to be light. Hold it in place. No, don't go pulling and stretching this one. That way you're not losing the roll, because a lot of times it tends to fly out of your hand. And then once you get to this point, then you can start cranking down. So if the wound is here, you're going to be pulling pressure this way because it tightens down onto it. So you don't need to be pulling it tight the whole way, but once you get back to that same spot, that way it's tightening down on right over the wound. And some of these are Velcro, some of them have little clips and stuff. Worst case, just tuck it inside of itself as long as you're not tucking it onto the wound. But this one's got some good Velcro on it.
Perfect. So in your experience, is that enough to start? If that artery is nicked, is that enough? You're just slowing it down, right? You're just stopping that gusher. Can you actually stop it with this?
Oh, yeah, you can stop it, especially if you have pressure in the right spot coming on there. You can definitely stop it. And the main goal here is just to give that enough time and stop that flow so that it can start to clot itself. Because if it's flowing, it's never going to get a chance to actually clot off. But with this, you give it an opportunity to actually clot itself, and obviously this is going to have to come back out later.
So in your car, if and we're not talking about all the other stuff like splints and all that, but just specifically to stop the bleed, what's the minimum you would recommend somebody carries in their car? How many combat gauze? Obviously a tourniquet or two.
Yeah, I would always have, at least 2 tourniquets, I would say. Never know what kind of snare you're getting in, and chances are, if you're getting shot once, probably getting shot twice. So I would have at least 2 tourniquets at a minimum. And then in terms of,
It's funny how Army, especially, and I did this for years, right? I've been out of the military for like 3 years, and everything used to be applied to combat, and I've started shifting towards car accidents and stuff. But it's your natural state to talk about getting shot, right?
Exactly.
But it could be a puncture wound, or it could be a car accident, or a severed
knife,
limb, right?
Yeah, and cut yourself on, or working with tools, anything.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah.
This is how you're stopping the bleed. In terms of like gauze, you saw that went pretty quick. So I would have, again, you could probably get away with just having 2 of these. As long as you have extras at home, you can restock. This is just a small medical type thing we're talking about. And probably another 2 of these ACE wraps as well.
So 2 ACE wraps, 2 combat gauze, 2 tourniquets in your car, in a bag. Perfect. But the most important thing is know how to use them, all right?
Exactly.
The gear's no good without the training. Alex, I appreciate it, man. That was quick, down and dirty, but that's what I wanted. And I want to do more videos like this because these are skills that people need to know. Absolutely. And a lot of people just don't. A lot of people have medical kits in their car and they don't even know what's in it. They're buying peace of mind. So get them out, pull them apart, figure out what they are, and get some training and train your kids. Okay? Hey, thanks. Until next time.
Thank you.